We do one all together. Okay, and just step up a little bit here. Everyone comes right there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, please, this way.
Look forward, please.
This way.
And just on the left here, please. Thank you.
This way.
And in the middle, please, Rooney.
All of you to the left corner, please.
And all together, could you look straight ahead, please?
Please, this way. Here, everybody.
And to the right corner, please. Right corner. Thank you.
Can we get you to turn this way?
Look up there, please.
Straight up, please. Straight in the corner? Yes, that's perfect. Like that. In the middle?
One to the right, please.
On the right, look up.
Together in front of you, please.
Here.
Right, please.
Look up, please.
Your left. And one just there as well, please. Thank you.
Please, this way. Right side. Down. Here. Okay.
Alright, now we'll do singles.
Yes.
So we're going to do each one of you individually. Go first.
Okay, please, sir.
Okay, this way.
One here, sir.
Straight ahead, please, sir.
This way, sir. This way.
At the top, please. Look it up.
Down. This way.
Could you look straight ahead, please?
Sir.
Right here.
This way in the corner. One
One
here.
up to your left. And one up to your left. And to the left corner.
Straight ahead, please.
Sir, this way, down.
And to the right corner, please. Yeah. Thank you.
And this side.
Okay, next row. Right here.
Okay, please.
Can you look just above that?
This way, down.
And once more above it.
Down.
Look at the right, please.
Slightly to the left.
This way.
Straight ahead,
This way.
Left corner.
To the right, please. To the right.
One more. This side. On the other side. This side.
And one more right here. Straight ahead,
To
please.
the right, please. And just
Back
take
to me.
this.
Straight ahead, please.
Sir. This way.
And right here. Show me this.
One more. Yeah. One more this way.
Right, please.
Sir, this way. Down. Here. Okay. Please. Okay.
This, on this one.
And can you look straight ahead, please?
Please.
And looking up here, please. Just on the left here,
And
please.
look up. Straight ahead, please. Once again. Can you look up? Miss, can you look straight ahead? Can you look up? Miss, can you look up straight ahead?
Left corner here in the middle. And one up to your left.
Right here, please.
Looking up.
This side. This way.
And straight ahead, please, with the man.
Anna.
And one up to your left one more time.
Looking up here, please.
Anna.
Next. Yes.
Straight ahead, please. Can you look in the middle, please?
And Rooney to your corner, to your corner. Yeah.
And just right in front of me here.
This way. Down first row.
Keep coming round.
And straight ahead.
This way, please.
Rooney straight ahead one more time.
Can you look up, please? Right here, please. Rudy, one more straight ahead, please. Right in the middle.
Right corner face.
Rudy straight
Rudy
ahead.
to right.
This way. This way.
See the front of your...
Rudy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're now watching the press conference for the Mexican competition entry La Cocina. Mexico is an important, very innovative film country, and director Alonso Ruiz Palacios is, without question, one of the most important filmmakers of his country. This is his third competition entry at the festival, and he has already won a Silver Bear for Best Screenplay. This time he presents La Cocina. The film is set in New York. It's based on the play by Arnold Wesker and makes the invisible visible. People like Pedro from Mexico, people who work in a grill, also called The Grill, who feed thousands of people, illegals like himself. And out of the blue, Pedro is suspected of stealing money. The well-oiled machine of this business becomes unhinged. It's a tragic comic homage to all the hard-working, toiling people we don't really notice. Coming up, the press conference for this Mexican film.
what asshole CEO decided everyone should be able to eat lobster? I mean, not everyone was meant to eat lobster in this life, in this world, you know?
It's the saddest thing I've heard today.
Did you know they used to be considered poor man's meat? Less than 100 years ago, lobster was the chicken of the sea.
Guten Tag allerseits.
Good
Good
day.
afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Please take the last pictures so we're ready to get started. Thank you very much. So, welcome everyone to the press conference of the film from Mexico in co-production with the United States in competition of the 74th edition of the Berlin Film Festival, La Cocina. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the filmmakers behind this brilliant piece. Starting on my right at the end of the table is the producer. You might know him because he was here before in Berlin with Museo the last time. He has a tendency to win awards when he is in Berlin. Welcome back, Ramiro Ruiz.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next to him, making her debut with La Cocina in the role of Estela, please welcome Ana Díaz. Bienvenida. She needs no introduction, also very loved in this festival. Last time seen with the Steven Soderbergh's film, Side Effects. She was also seen in Gus Van Sant's film, Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. But of course she has 2 Oscar nominations and a long, long list that I don't need to remind you of. Welcome back, Rooney Mara. And also very loved by the Berlin audience. He was seen in Panorama with Alejandra Márquez's film in 2021. It was actually the COVID edition. And you probably remember him most from a cop movie, where the film also won an award here in Berlin. Welcome back, Raúl Briones. And responsible for it all, now more than ever, because not only did he write it, he also directed it, but also produced the film. Welcome back, Alonso Ruiz Palacios. So I would like to start with a question for Alonso. Maybe the rest of you can jump in if you would like to, because you have all seen the film, and it's actually very hard to imagine how you actually shot in that kitchen. What did it take to make that kitchen, to make that very long shot, and get everyone to do what you wanted them to do? How did you do that?
So we shot I had this dream of making this movie in Mexico, even though it's set in New York, which was a strange thing. But I knew we would be able to rehearse more and to have more control and stuff. So we built the kitchen in a soundstage in Mexico, and then it took us that sequence was like a week and a half or something like that. It's just a lot of rehearsal. I spent a lot of time in kitchens. I did a trip to New York before shooting for research, and I just went inside all of the kitchens I could and just recorded everything, and I memorized the rhythms. You know, there's many like different, very specific rhythms in a kitchen, and so you have to first get it to work as a kitchen, and then get it to work as a kitchen for the camera. So it was, yeah, it was fun.
So did you actually eat the food?
No way. It's supposed to be uneatable, I think.
Exactly.
That food. Yeah.
And Ramiro, could you tell us a little bit about the production, from the production side, how you put this, pulled this whole thing together?
Yes, it was a hard work. We designed this kitchen in the soundstage, as Alonso was saying, and we had to shoot in New York the outside of the movie, all the alley and all the streets. So, and we had the restaurant, the front of the restaurant. That restaurant was in Mexico too, but wasn't in the soundstage. It was
Cheesecake
Factory in a neighborhood in Mexico City, which is Santa Fe, which is like a financial district. So we connect the front of the restaurant and the kitchen through a little hole we made in the stage, and we had it in the restaurant. It was hard to do that, and then we all obviously we helped that with VFX but it's impressive in the movie that you cannot tell that. I mean, it's like the restaurant is there and the kitchen is there and are communicate. So, well, Sandra Cabreada was the production designer. She's the production designer of all the Alonso's movies, Güeros and Museo. And then we had Gibran Aswad, who is over there. He's the editor of the movie. He's been the fantastic and terrific editor. And Juan Pablo Ramirez, who is over there. He's a DP. He's just a great DP, Mexican DP, very, very proud of his job. And then, well, we have this beautiful and great cast with Rooney, Raul, and my dear Anna. So we worked like 15 weeks in pre-production, then we have 10 weeks shooting in Mexico and 1 week shooting in New York. Then we have a little complicated things in New York, so we shot another half a week in New York. After a year, we finished the shooting in Mexico. So it was a complicated movie, but I think you can tell that in the screen, and it's a movie that all the team, all the crew wanted to do it the same way. And I think you can tell that on the screen. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. We have the first question in the back over there.
So, hello, I'm Markus from Ankert, Austria. First of all, thanks for this very intense film. I happen to work as a cook, so maybe a little trigger warning would have been good. Since I know the kitchen very well, I know that a kitchen can be a very colorful and vibrant place. You shot it in black and white. Also, you almost completely removed the food porn aspect that many restaurant set movies are known for. So I wanted to know if you could elaborate on those decisions. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I was kind of tired of food porn stuff, and I was always, I mean, I worked, this whole thing started because I worked, when I was a student, I worked in a rainforest cafe place, which is a very un-food porn restaurant. And so I was more drawn to that and the experience, the collective experience of being with other people in those types of kitchens, where you form like a band of brothers, but as soon as the rush starts, it's everyone for himself, and that really attracted me. A lot of the characters that ended up in the movie, I think, are people that I met in my time in the Rainforest Cafe. I kind of wrote them there. So I think also that's the most common part of the kitchen industry, not the food porn part. So I think that was important, and it's it's a metaphor of late capitalism or whatever, in that, it's just about getting things done and how people get lost somehow in that. That's what interested me more. I think the tragedy is that these people that are really, some of them are really good cooks, they don't have time to put their art into it. There's no interest, there's no need for it. And that's most of the food experiences that we have. So that's why I was drawn to that. And as for the black and white, I mean, when I wrote this film, I always saw it in black and white, and I never questioned it. And then I had to come up with some sort of justification to get the producers on board this suicidal notion. But the stuff that I came up with was that, I mean, it's about contrast, right? It's a film about upstairs, downstairs, front of the house, back of the house. So I think black and white really lends itself to that. And I also wanted to make it time specific, like you don't know if it's now or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So I think black and white helps with that. And then, I don't know, me and Juan Pablo were watching these Masahisa Fukase pictures, and I was really obsessed with them. And they, I don't know, there was just the quality of the black and white that made it like a fable. It made the story more like a fable, less. And I think kitchens are always seen in like colorful ways, and so it was interesting to create a framework that sort of withdrew from it.
Please go ahead, here in the middle.
Hola. Hola, buenas tardes.
Yes, hello. Hi, my name is Irene from the web-based cinema production in Spain. First of all, congratulations to this wonderful film. It's a very particular film, given the conflicts and the various characters. And this is a question also for Alonso. Have you actually met people of this kind? Because you describe it so succinctly, so well, what it means to be working without documentation in a semi-legal condition. So maybe you could elaborate a bit more on that. Thank you.
Me interesaba. Should I talk in Spanish?
Como quieras.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes, as I said earlier, first of all, I myself worked in a kitchen, and for a while, and as a foreigner. And obviously my situation was different as a student, different from those undocumented immigrants in New York. But I had the fortune, really, of meeting many people, and I was able to really investigate the situation profoundly or in depth before working on this film. So I knew many cooks, and many of their stories really coincided or echo what you see in the film. I knew, for example, a girl named Jackie whose story emulates closely the one that you see in the film by Estela. I think it's very frequent, this kind of life of the cooks in New York. And there was a joke.
There was no Japanese food, no Chinese food, because it was all done by Mexicans, specifically from the state of Puebla. No? La mayoría vienen del estado.
Because the majority of people come from the federal state of Puebla. There's a strong migratory flow from there. So there's a lot of aspects that come in there, listening to people's stories and taking it up. And secondly, I always wanted to shoot a film that speaks to what happens after crossing the border. There are many films in Mexico. It's almost a genre, which is the migrant film. But then there are very few that speak about what happens on the other side. Either the dream comes true or it doesn't. And that was, in my view, an interesting starting point. And it was really beautiful meeting all of these people, talking to them about their dreams. And there's always a cost attached to this dream that they wish to fulfill.
Hello, thank you. Lazar Christian from Derek Radio, Bulgaria. I have a question for Alonso. Can you elaborate more on this catastrophic scene and the long take with the cherry cola? And was that your decision? And how did you manage to make it so catastrophic and apocalyptic? And for Rooney Mara, how did you approach your character? Because it's a really good performance. And why did you think her story has to be told, and why it's an important story for you? Thank you.
You want to go first?
Oh, no, you. You should go.
No.
The cherry Coke.
Cherry Coke. The cherry Coke is actually related to her in a strange way. So I did a trip like maybe 11 years ago. I don't know. So some time ago. I don't know how many. But to New York with my wife. No, it was more than that. Before we had kids, and we went to a cinema. In Christmas Day, that was our Christmas celebration, going to the cinema by ourselves in New York. And as we went to buy some popcorn, I felt when I was reaching the what do you call where they sell the sweets in the concessionary? So I was approaching it. I realized that the floor was really wet. It was like, and then I came close and I realized there was a cherry Coke machine and it was spilling it like a fountain, like an endless fountain. It was like, and the people who were selling, they didn't give a shit. They were all like, just, and somebody asked for cherry Coke and they just went like, oh yeah. And I was like, there's a cherry Coke. It's like all over the floor. And I went, yeah, I know. And so, that to me was like a perfect image of fucked up capitalism, like just a fountain of cherry Coke. And the film we went to see that night was The Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. It was. And I said to my wife that night, I said, fuck, I want to work with her one day. So.
And here we are.
What was my question was about Julia. Well, I really wanted to work with Alonso. He wrote me this beautiful letter, and I read the script and I watched all of his work, and I really just wanted to make anything with him. And I really wanted to, the way he talked about the experience of how he wanted to make this film. It was just an experience I really wanted to have, working with all these actors, and yeah. I didn't write the script, so I can't speak to some of those questions about Julia. Alonso could answer them better, but I just really wanted to work with him. So.
Howard?
Alonso, es una pregunta para ti.
Alonso, this is a question for you, and I'll ask it in Spanish, and maybe you can also ask it in Spanish. Answer it. The situation in the kitchen, I suppose that in the script it is clear that the ending, this denouement that leads to the abortion by the waitress. And in the case of Briones, the figure, there is also this self-destructive denouement, if you will. That's my interpretation, at least, of it. This figure of Estela seems to, dissolve in a way. And therefore, this interpretation that you did of it in the film, what was the aim of that? Well, this question about the film, I'm not really sure if that is a question that is raised in the film as such, but I like to set up perhaps misleading trails in my films. And then we have this, the front of the restaurant, where the kind of final scene really takes place, and it had to happen sort of in the back office first. And it was very important not to start with the protagonist, but to start off with somebody who believe is the protagonist, but who ends up not being the protagonist. So she enters through the back door into the restaurant. So the first half of the film, or the first half hour of the film, is spent without really knowing the protagonist. And the protagonist then shows up late in the film, shows up late for work, and then shows up late in the film. And in a certain way, I think Estela is kind of the witness in the film. She has this witness role in the sense that she witnesses this story in the kitchen. It's her first day on the work, so we're actually joining her on that. And then we witness this self-destruction, the self-immolation of Pedro, and it ends up then with this exchange of gaze between her and Pedro.
No.
No. There was nothing after that.
Maybe it's a good moment, Ana, para preguntarte a ti, ¿cuál fue tu reacción?
Maybe this is a good moment for you, Anna, to ask you what you felt when you read the script and read about your figure in the script.
Ay, no. Ay, no sé por qué voy.
I don't know, really.
No, estoy conmovida.
No.
Pues fue impresionante.
It was very impressive.
Primero que nada porque
First of all, because I always wanted to work or hoped to work with Alonso. And then I met this wonderful team.
Y luego me enteré de la historia.
And then I read the script and the storyline.
Y vi ahí una oportunidad.
And I saw an opportunity therein to show and depict the solitude and isolation of immigrants. And I'm getting very emotional because my mother actually years ago left her country and she went to a country where she didn't speak the language. And to me, that is pure isolation and solitude, not to be able to share what is happening in words. But also looking at it with a certain tenderness, because when you leave behind everything that you love in order to pursue a dream, I believe that this tenderness remains, and that is how I looked at these figures. People who are damaged, who have been hurt, but yet they keep on dreaming in a way, despite all of that. And therefore, to me, that was really so special to be able to do this. Thank you very much.
Natalia.
Hi, first of all, thanks a lot for the movie. I think it's my favorite so far, and I was like texting my colleagues, it's the best direction prize, it's the best actors prize, it's like it should get something and more than one. My question is, for me, it looked like, Shakespearean or Greek tragedy shown in this kitchen with these people. So you do not have to have like Macbeth killing the king or Oedip marrying his mother to make this scale of emotions and the depths of human tragedy, human loneliness, all this poetic stuff. You have to tell the story of the everyday life of everyday people who have their struggles. So the question is, did you have this intention to bring it to some epic scale, I would say? And for me, the music also played the role. Your music choice sort of makes it more, I don't know, epic in a good way. So maybe Alonso, Rooney, Raúl, your thoughts. Thank you.
Sí, quiero hablar.
Yes, I can speak about this and take up the question.
Sí, justamente creo que
yes, I do
para mí
believe
esta película
that this film is kind of the closure of a vital process. It's not just a simple picture in that sense, not just a film. It is the culmination, the conclusion of a process that started off with Alonso. And particularly with the final scene that where I'm at the theater school and also in the kitchen, and I'm being directed there by Alonso. And I had the opportunity to interpret both the owner of the kitchen and then the vagabond. And then in this film, I had the opportunity to play the figure, the character of Pedro. So I had three different figures, three different personalities in this universe, and there have been so many discoveries along the way. I think one of the main discoveries was also working about this and talking about this tragedy, and I agree with that choice of term. I think we are all, to a certain extent, our own country. And in the kitchen, you have to defend your boundaries, your own rules, norms, and standards. And it's about being willing or not to cede ground vis-à-vis the others and their norms and standards. So I think this is a very potent message also vis-à-vis what we are currently experiencing in this crisis of humanity, quite frankly. I think we need to stop. I think that Pedro is somebody who cannot stop. A migrant cannot stop, because if they stop, then everything sort of comes upon them, the memories, everything that they've left behind. So they need to continue. They need to continue forward to pursue that dream, be it a big promise or a big lie. And they are kind of floating in this strange country, which is the country of the migrants, that doesn't belong anywhere, and where they belong essentially to themselves, with this huge desperation of having to somehow create a new life in a new place. And in this case, Pedro is dreaming perhaps of this idea of creating a family with Julia, but that is destroyed. And all of these characters and figures are hurt, isolated, alone, in a big city, and it's kind of the huge metaphor, and there's no bigger metaphor actually for capitalism than New York. So if you take this group of people under these circumstances, that will lead to problems, and we need to stop, and we need to look at the lives of others there. And this film, I think, really gave me the opportunity to stop and look at Alonso. I think Alonso had the opportunity to look at me, and that we were able to mutually witness each other as humans, friends, and creators in a way. So in a way, it was a real shock.
Dominik Zimmer, Lateinamerika Nachrichten.
Dominik Zimmer,
First of all,
Latin America News.
Congratulations for making this movie. I have two questions. First goes to Alonso, and second one maybe also to Raúl. First question would be, I observed a lot of toxic masculinity in the behavior of the male staff of the restaurant. Also, I observed that all the waitresses were women. So my question would be, why did you feel the need to include so much like graphic language and also violent acts that were toxic, and sometimes they were also uncontested, I felt, in the movie? And the second question is, where do you see, especially as male artists, your responsibility to change that kind of behavior in real life? Thank you.
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. I mean, okay, so the source material for the film is a play from the 1950s by Arnold Wesker, where there was no such thing as toxic masculinity. There was just masculinity or being. So that was interesting to me to kind of take that, apply it, see what it looks like right now. I think kitchens are, from having had personal experience in them and from having had the chance of seeing them as an observer, a lot of those notions that you talk about, which I think make the world a better place and there's more room for understanding, do not apply in a place like a kitchen. A kitchen is a cased system. It's a very strict cased system where boundaries and hierarchies are very clear and are not stepped over. And that is the way they work. That is the way they are. So as much as it would be untrue to portray a kitchen where all the males are very understanding and careful of each other, and that just doesn't, it's not the case. That's not how the cookie crumbles in those places. So I wanted to make a movie, and particularly with all of these undocumented immigrants working there. It is a very macho culture. One, because they have, they bring all this culture from Latin America that is very macho. And by the way, America, I think, is equally as macho culture as Latin America. It's something that we found. It was interesting because in the process of making the film, we had a long period of rehearsals. We had, which, for a film, it's very rare to have a good period of rehearsals, but for this film, it was essential that, so we had 3 weeks of having all the actors there, and we did a lot of improvs, and we had all these Americans and Mexicans, and so we talked a lot about this stuff, and it was very interesting how that always came out as the force that you have to go to make yourself heard. Is always you have to exert strength and force. If you don't, you drown. You disappear in the kitchen. You're stepped over, and eventually fired. So that it was important that was portrayed how it is, how it works. It's not a dream society. That's just how people behave.
We have a question over here on the right. Then in the middle.
Hello, David Lobjanidze, Litegram magazine from Georgia. My question is for the director, for Alonso. And so in film, we hear twice a statement by Raul's character saying that America is not a country. Is it a question for the viewer, for every viewer to answer for themselves? Or either as a director, as a screenwriter, did you have anything in particular in mind? What's your idea? About America being not a country?
I mean, I think it's a literal thing. I mean, it's both perhaps something else, but it's also, I saw this meme the other day that I sent to everyone in the crew, where there's a picture of, it says, there's a picture of the United States and it says, this is the United States. And there's a picture of the American continent and it says, this is America. Learn the difference. And I think it's a critique of, it's Pedro's point of view. I mean, I would like to hear what Raul thinks about that, but it's Pedro's point of view about, the world is not America. America is not United States. America goes from Alaska to the Patagonia. And I think it's part of that problem of reducing America to those limits that, it's a big part of the problem. That's what I think Pedro means.
I'd like to take up the earlier question there because, yes, it was a topic, particularly for me. I'm a non-binary person. I've been transitioning. 5 years ago, I started transitioning, and this is the first male figure also for me within my transition, and that was a topic for me. And I've been asking me for a while already what kind of figures I've had to interpret, and trying to think about that. I have this beautiful face, but I've also been cast very often as the assassins or villains, simply because of the energy that I project. And for the very first time, I focused on building a male, Pedro, who ends up being a total failure, a catastrophe, simply because he cannot simply stop and limit himself to being sad, for example, then having to go home and then doing his work in the kitchen. We do witness that in the film when he's completely devastated, that he sees that Julia has left and that he's just discovered that Julia already has a child from an earlier marriage. And the kitchen goes on, despite the emotions that Pedro is going through. And in many cases, I really asked myself whether men under these very toxic and violent premises don't have any other possible destiny than a tragic destiny, i.e. to destroy themselves. And I actually broke a finger during this process and during these final scenes that we were shooting in the film. And I was asking myself, why am I making my body go through this energy, this pain? Why do men have to defend themselves in this way, defend themselves against the others? And I don't really have any other answer than the one that Pedro comes up with. At the end of the day, he sacrifices himself. At the end of the day, trying to rebuild himself under those social premises that allow him, a man, to be a man. And to be a leader in a way as well. And then there's also this very, very interesting aspect about the different roles in the kitchen. And he's, for example, working on the stove, and he's constantly engulfed in flames, and there's a lot of smoke and fire going on. And he is the one who's... and then there's the others also who are working at the grill or taking case of the salads. And when I then came home after working and had really all of this pain, was this really the consequence of trying to put myself into his shoes, in Pedro's shoes, trying to be a man? And honestly, I don't know, but I do believe that something has to be changed in that construction of the masculine, that these premises have to fall by the wayside at some point, because otherwise we will simply become our own worst enemies going forward.
Thanks for this beautiful answer. Hello, my name is Mark Mullenbrock, working for the ARD, public broadcaster in Germany, radio station Cosmo. This is a question for Rooney Mara. You've brought such a variety in the roles that you played and have such wonderful instinct in the films that you have chosen. Also this beautiful film, maybe you can give a short insight in how you choose your roles and what makes projects interesting for you. Thanks a lot.
For me, I really go by the director. Like, I learned that pretty early. I had some bad experiences as an actor. And then I think it was probably after the first time I worked with David Fincher that I was like, oh, the director, like follow the director. And so I really kind of make my choices based on the filmmaker and who I want to work with, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's all them. So that's really how I make my choices.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
La jornada aquí acompañándolos.
This is La Jornada. Maybe you could repeat the name of the author that you mentioned at the beginning of the film, because you were mentioning something about this aspect of capitalism there that was salient. And my question goes to this image of the kitchen, which is a totally active, alive situation. And if you do not have a control of everything is happening, then things simply get out of hand. So this kind of crucible, melting pot of cultures in this kitchen finally enrich a society. Don't you believe that this image, this discourse is particularly important given the rise of nationalist discourses and nationalistic views, that this variety, this richness of cultural experience is so enriching. And then I think you also touch briefly, very briefly, on this racism that we also have amongst Mexicans, which is also terrible. Yeah, that is la güera, the blonde one. If you get together with a blonde one, with a blonde woman, everything will be better. So you just obliquely touch on it, really. So very much on the sidelines of the main plot. So that is my question. So first of all, the creative space, this melting pot of cultures that enrich our society, that make it more beautiful in a way. And was that really what you were attempting to do, or was this really something that I just tried to interpret there? Because a film is, before we analyze it and interpret it, needs to appeal to us, first of all, first and foremost. And I can say we liked it a lot. Thank you very much.
Bueno, la cita es de Thoreau.
Well, the quote is by Thoreau.
Henry David Thoreau.
Henry David Thoreau, who was one of those father figures of 19th century United States America, and he speaks to this kind of event, this modernity that is coming across the land and does not allow for things to survive. And I think this film also takes up a quote by Wesker, the original author of the theater play, where he says, the world, someone said the world is a scene, is a stage. For me, it is a kitchen. And I like that, because the kitchen is like the microcosm. You find the microcosm of the world. And in a kitchen, you can observe quite a number of those activities and behaviors, the most extreme behaviors, human behaviors that you can witness, the kind of toxic behavior that you mentioned as well, but also a lot of love and tenderness. It's very difficult to find these moments, but they're there. And they exist. And when it comes to racism, well, racism, very often in Mexico, we believe that we're not, or we consider ourselves non-racist, and that only the gringos are racist, the Americans. But in Mexico, we have also profound racism. In Mexico, it does exist. Racism does not have a nationality or is not exclusive to any country. It exists in various guises and shapes and expressions across the world. And I think it's also important to show this aspect, which comes from prejudice, from fear, from the unknown as well. And I think it's important to show it. Not just the prejudice brought about by the US American, but also the one that is expressed by the Mexican.
Another question, if you make it short, we can fit two.
Very quick, yes.
Thank you.
A question for Ronnie Mara, Grandesso Federico from Il Giornale d'Italia. Can you tell me a little bit how was your experience in the kitchen, how you felt in the kitchen with all these problems and the Coke, cherry Coke, how was and if you like this environment?
I loved the kitchen. Shooting the Rush was exhilarating, and it was so much fun. It was really challenging, but I loved it. I loved it being in that energy, and especially with the space that Alonso created with the actors. Yeah, it was just alive and fun and exhilarating, and you didn't know what was going to happen, and I loved it.
Mahani, please. Last question. Thank you.
I make it very short. First of all, I want to thank the director, because you give the voice to the voiceless and the soul to people who are damned. And this is really great. Alma Harisegit from the Africa Refugee News. But my question is for the producer. How is the market now in Mexico? Because 4 or 5 years ago, it was really bad. So do you have enough cash to make films like this? Because this film will get a prize for what he did.
Voy a contestar en español.
Well, I will answer in Spanish. Thank you very much for that question. The market, as we all know, has really become depressed after the pandemic. Going to cinemas, sitting in a cinema hall has been increasingly pushed to the margin. And my partner, producers, and myself, we believe firmly that films have to be made in order to be shown in cinema halls and not just exclusively shown on platforms or internet platforms. And that is always our aim. And this film is certainly to be viewed, to be shown, to be screened in cinemas. And when it comes to the budgets, well, this film, well, in Mexico, we still have state support for cinematic projects. This is also tax supported by tax breaks, and I think that the situation is developing, but we still have those tax incentives. But I'd worked with Alonso on 2 or 3 projects previously, and what I do see is there's a certain potential and in the films and the script and the way he brings a team together, and all of that contributes to a strong expression of the film, and therefore the producers and partners support these kinds of films perhaps easier, in inverted commas. And in this case, we had great support from various co-producers who are here, from Astrakhan Films, Ivan, from Sema Pictures, and Cristina from Fifth Season. All of them believed in the project for the same reasons that I've just laid out, because Alonso and his scripts have this ability to bring people together that feel and think the same way. And I think films have to be made so that people see them, and they have to be shown in the cinema. And that was the founding principle upon which we worked. We didn't go to sell the film to a platform. We didn't even reach out to any platform. We were able to maintain our work independently in that sense. And that is the film that we wanted to do with the people that we had, that we wanted to make this film without any debt or obligation towards nobody else. And in this sense, well, it's a very free form of film as well. And I believe that Leune, Ivan, and Cristina, and the other partners believed in this film, and that allowed us to make this film. So in a nutshell, that's it. It's always a challenge for producers nowadays to produce this kinds of film, or these kinds of films, but we still continue to do those.
Raúl, por favor.
Yes, I'd like to add something regarding this collective effort, because what I really believe is the beauty of it is this coming together, and that the kitchen is alive at every sense and every level, and all of the people in the kitchen are alive, and coming together to, and also creating these figures and characters was a collective effort. And therefore I'd like to thank all of my colleagues, all of the actors and actresses that helped build up this universe of the kitchen together. And we are the main protagonists in a way, but each and every one of them is there defending their characters as they defend their own country. And that is something that's really beautiful, because without that it wouldn't be possible to have them shine the way they do. So this kitchen is alive, and it is thanks to this collective effort of an entire team. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you for your questions, and have a wonderful world premiere tonight, La Cocina.
Gracias.